Turn the master on. Mixture full rich, battery and alternator on. Yeah, the prime is here, so we have the prime. Okay, and then we clear.
Alright, check 1, 2.
Yep, loud and clear. Okay, we're on the runway. We check heading indicator. Looks good. Slowly add power. Checking airspeed. Engine gauges look good. Just kind of feel the airplane, let it tell you when it's ready to come off the ground. You don't have to pull it off.
Montgomery traffic, Skype 73010 departing runway 14, no delays.
Montgomery traffic number 1809 Hotel, final 14, Montgomery student pilot solo.
Delaware Park.
So when I teach to fly, I don't teach to look at an airspeed. I teach just to put the nose right about on the horizon like this.
Traffic Skylane.
The more comfortable climb out, safer.
Right, traffic Warrior 176. 22 call back.
Potomac, November 9-4, Whiskey Alpha with you off Gaithersburg.
9-4 Whiskey Alpha, proceed on course out of the Bravo.
Whiskey Alpha, roger.
Nice and smooth up here.
Yeah, that's why it's so hazy. It's smooth. So let's turn autopilot on. The flight director will come on. And let's put it in nav mode and hold altitude. So we're in the autopilot is on. We're holding altitude and we're tracking GPS in the nav mode. We can arm the approach mode. So now the approach mode is armed and it's looking, the GP means it's looking for a glide path. So once it does the procedure turn and turns back around, the autopilot now knows that it should be looking for a glide path. But right now it's navigating on its own. We've activated the approach mode. And we have nothing else to do until we get to about 200 feet above the runway.
Yeah, I like that go-around button.
Yeah, you can use that on the missed approach. You can also use it for takeoff. I could have set it up for takeoff to explain to people how to use it for takeoff.
What does it do?
Well, it sets the command bars to the proper pitch attitude to go around, or you can use it for an instrument takeoff, and this autopilot will fly it automatically.
Oh, wow.
It's very cool.
Technology is really advanced.
Yeah, I used to work for an FBO, and they had a big avionics shop, and I did all the test flights when we installed new equipment. So I got to go to a lot of the manufacturer's training programs to learn how to operate it. And also if a client come in and said, well, my autopilot or my GPS is doing this, when I do this, I would go up and troubleshoot it and try to figure out what they were doing. So anyway, I got a lot of training in high-tech avionics. And kind of the joke in the industry is that the cockpit of the future will have a dog in it and a pilot. And the dog is there to bite the pilot if he touches anything.
So this autopilot will fly the entire approach.
It'll go here and do this procedure turn or enter this hold, turn inbound, and fly the entire approach.
That's incredible.
And it'll start descending at the proper moment on the proper glide path to the runway. We just sit back and sip our coffee and flirt with the flight attendants. Okay, now the autopilot's going to fly this magenta line here. It's going to go out and then loop back around to the left. And we have to monitor this. We're still waiting for a glide path. It knows to be looking for a glide path. So it's going to make us do a left turn. So it's going to stay perfectly on that magenta line there. Okay, we have a countdown to turn on course. We're going to intercept the final approach course.
Carroll traffic, Skyhawk on upwind's going to extend for spacing. Carroll County.
Maryland traffic, Cherokee 75 Romeo on downwind.
Okay, we should change from terminal soon.
Maryland traffic.
Let us know we're getting glide slope.
On fine.
Carroll County, please copy your west base 16, Carroll County.
The traffic jumpers away, 9,000.
So now we have LPV, so we know we're going to have glide slope. And here comes the glide slope. You can see it there and there. When that little thing comes down in the center, the altitude light will go off and the glide path light will come on. And there's the runway about 10 miles ahead of us. We're lined up perfectly on the center line. Carroll County traffic, Piper 94 Whiskey Alpha is about a 10-mile final 16 on the RNAV 16 approach. We're going to be a low approach and we'll break it off to the west. Okay, we're approaching our VNAV profile. So now what we're waiting to see is the altitude light go off and the glide path light will come on to show us that we're on the glide path. Okay, now we're on the glide path. And I'm just going to put one notch of flaps in nice and smoothly.
5 miles southwest. We're straight in runway 6 on the instrument approach, so remain clear.
So altitude light went off here. And we didn't touch anything. And we're still just letting George fly the airplane. We can just adjust the throttle to keep us in the white arc. But we do have approach flaps in. Carroll County traffic, Piper 94 Whiskey Alpha, about a 7-mile final 16 will be a low approach and depart to the west. I usually recommend just making small power adjustments, only 100 at a time. You don't need to yank the throttle back and forth. Just nice and small, nice and smooth corrections. Carroll County traffic, Piper 94 Whiskey Alpha's 5-mile final 16. And Piper's 3-mile final 16 at Carroll low approach. Okay, so now we get down to minimums. We don't have the runway, so we can execute a go-around. So we go around, command bars pitch up, command bars come up, and all we have to do, not touching the yoke yet, bring the throttle up. Get the flaps out. We still haven't touched the airplane. Okay, it's stabilized on the go-around attitude. Let's turn the autopilot off. Let's do a couple of VFR maneuvers. We want to turn the autopilot off, turn the flight director off, go over here. Okay, fairly simple.
Traffic, Skyhawk on left downwind 16 short.
Automation at its finest. I'm just playing around.
Love it.
So I'm going to show you how to set up slow flight here in a minute.
Perfect.
Okay, we don't have any traffic in front of us according to ADS-B and looking out the window. So slow flight is very simple. It's often taught somewhat incorrectly. Make sure the airplane's trimmed up, you're happy with the airplane. You can let go of the airplane and it's going to continue straight and at your altitude. So, and I call this a reference power setting. If the examiner says he wants 80 knots, bring the power back to 2,000. You may have to tweak that a bit. And 10 degrees of flaps, or your first setting, should give you about 80 knots. So we got 10 degrees of flaps in, and we're just going to wait. And we're just going to trim the airplane. We may have to adjust this a little bit. Again, I call it a reference power setting, depending on the weight, the way the engine's running. But 2,000 RPM, 2,100 thereabouts, should give you 80 knots. And you just let go of the airplane. Just keep it trimmed, you let go of the airplane. Just make some small adjustments. You don't have to fight the airplane. Now we're at 80 knots. Now if the examiner says, I want 70 knots, second notch of flaps, little nose down trim. We haven't touched the power. And as the airplane slows up, we'll need a little nose up trim. So just let it come back down here. Maybe bring it back to 2,000. And we're just going to wait. We're just going to wait. Just my fingertips, and I'm using the trim a lot, feeling the airplane. Here we come up, 2,000 RPM, second notch of flaps. We're within the ACS standards for 70 knots. A little more nose up trim. You can just if you make power adjustments, make them 100 or less at a time, and just be patient. Here we are coming up on 70 knots. Now if the DPE says 60 knots, we'll go full flaps. Just leave it where it is, a little nose down trim. Let the airplane slow up. Not touching the power. Just my fingertips, I'm using the trim wheel. Here we are, hands free, and we're nailing 60 knots. So that's how easy slow flight is. You don't have to fight the yoke. We're not even touching it. We're just flying the airplane using trim and precise power settings. And the airplane will fly away just as if the autopilot's on. Yep, we haven't done anything. We want to make a turn just a little bit on the control wheel. Get the airplane turning. Let go of it, and it'll continue to turn. It'll hold altitude for the most part and turn without any input. Not touching it, we're establishing a steady bank angle, and we're turning. Hands are off the wheel, and we're at 60 knots. Very easy. One of the simplest maneuvers to do, but the way it's taught often makes it a very complex maneuver for the applicant. Okay, to recover, ease up the power, nice and slow. As you bring the power up, trim down, retract some flaps, more power, trim down, flaps, and let the airplane accelerate. And we're going to use that tower that's off the wing right there as our pylon. And just for demonstration purposes, we're just going to fly a circle around that so we could show the applicants how to properly maintain the pylon. pivotal altitude out here is about 1,800 feet. It's going to vary depending on your ground speed. You're not supposed to look at GPS for ground speed. You're supposed to look out the window and feel the airplane. So we're going to come up on pivotal altitude. And the object in this maneuver is to make it appear as if your wingtip is just pivoting off of your reference point. It should just pivot, like the old toy airplanes that were on a string that you flew around in a circle. There's a string attached to that pylon there, and we're tethered to that pylon, and it should be just off the wingtip. Now, the common errors I see are people climbing and descending at 1,000 feet a minute or going like this with the yoke. And really all you need to do is just do this when it's on pylons. And your altitude does change a little bit, but very minimum, and it's based on ground speed. And on a day like today, it's probably not going to change much at all. You don't need to be fighting the yoke. You don't need to be climbing or descending at 1,000 feet a minute. You just want to keep that off your wingtip. Nice and smooth. You don't need to maintain altitude. It's supposed to vary a bit depending on the wind, but it should not vary by a whole lot. And it should just be pivoting off there. Your bank angle changes. When you're on the upwind side, you get a little closer. When you're on the downwind side, you get a little wider. And we're just making sure that we're still pivoting off that. We're not trying to keep an equal distance. We're just trying to keep our wing pivoting off of that pylon, and really helps if you're trimmed up, and pretty much just let go of the airplane and make small adjustments with trim or the yoke to keep it on the pylon. If it gets in front of us like this, we're supposed to lower the nose a little bit. Watch, we lower the nose and it comes right up on the center of the wingtip again. But again, it's just real small adjustments. Nothing real abrupt. We're still roughly at 1,800 feet. We're pivoting off of that pylon. We let go of the yoke and do nothing, and the airplane will do the maneuver for you on your check ride. Folks need to remember on check rides, the least you do with the throttle and the yoke, the better. The airplane's going to be smoother. If you're going like this with the throttle and this with the yoke, it's not what it's supposed to be. The least you do with the throttle and the yoke, you just set it and hold it here and make small adjustments. Now look, we're getting a little wider, so I guess the winds are out of the southwest today, and that's what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be wider on the downwind side, and we get closer on the upwind side. And we're not touching the yoke, and we're pivoting off the pylon. My hands are nowhere near the yoke. And to show them the altimeter here, and I'm not touching the yoke, and we're flying the pylon. Perfectly off the pylon with no pilot input. We're right on the pylon, right where we should be. This is how easy it is. You're coming into the airport and you're descending. This is not an elevator, this is the elevator here. Just set the throttle to 2100 RPM, lower the nose, and we'll start descending. We don't need to see our ground speed, we don't need to see anything up here. 2100 RPM. And we'll just trim. Just a gradual descent. Coming traffic, Piper 94 Whiskey Alpha. We're about 4 northeast. We'll be joining left downwind 14. Okay, we're trimming. We set the power 2200 RPM. Should work in most light aircraft. We don't need to use this as an elevator. Coming traffic, 94 Whiskey Alpha is 2 out on the 45 for left downwind 14. Coming traffic, Piper 94 Whiskey Alpha joining left downwind 14.
Copy traffic, Skyline 112, turning left base 52, copy.
Okay, and we know from doing slow flight, flying by a power setting, that 2122 will get you in the white arc, even though we can't see the white arc. So beam the numbers, we'll get 10 degrees of flaps in, a little nose down trim, and then once we're beam the numbers, then we start descending.
Montgomery traffic, Vietjet 64 Alpha Romeo, departing runway
17 to 1800 RPM. And these are reference power settings. We may tweak them depending on traffic and conditions at the airport. Second notch of flaps, nose down. Little nose down trim. Little bumpy here, getting some afternoon heating already. We roll out on final. We're just feeling the airplane, keeping the airplane trimmed up. Not being in a hurry to give up any altitude or power setting. So now we're on short final. We could trim the airplane up. My hands on the yoke. We let go of the airplane and let it come on down its merry way to the runway.
Traffic, Vietjet 64 Alpha Romeo.
Very light touch on the controls.
Northeast, Montgomery.
We're coming up, yeah, a little afternoon bouncing here.
Montgomery traffic, Skyhawk 1377 uniform, turning base on 914.
And now my hand goes down to the trim. So we're getting a little bit of bumpy here. And let that nose come down on its own, and then when you land, you should keep back elevator pressure. No need to slam brakes on.